everybody, welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors. Dennis and I got a great episode for you. We'll be revisiting the past episode with Chaplain Patrick and discuss the key takeaways. We'll be discussing spiritual awakening, not only in our own lives, but in other people's. And at the same time, we'll be discussing the world's deceptive allure. So without further ado, here you go. He's also able to share the individual or help the individuals if he can, whether they don't share the same religious views, for making so he makes space for individuals so they can practice their own religion and have space to do that and feel free to do it. But then he even is able to counsel people who don't have any faith and at that moment, and really practicing faith. I think that was cool. He understood, and you've made a really good point. You were like, you know what, like I think you said when you were in war, you're like, I had to kind of shut that down. And it was
Yeah.
almost a way of like self-preservation that made sense to me. I was like, yeah, it must be really hard to like have faith while you're in your mind setting up to take out whatever threats coming your way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the potential. Yeah, there's also the potential of self harm or something happening to you,
Yeah.
too. And it's like, like you don't want distractions from home either.
Right.
Like guys could get distracted by something at home, wife messing around with somebody or something, and that can be distracting. But kids having kid problems, normal kid problems, can be a distraction. Anything that if you sit there thinking about it instead of thinking about the objective and the mission, then you're being distracted. So I mean, it's going to happen some. We're human. You're thinking about, life back home. You're thinking about things that you wish you'd rather be doing or that you're going to be doing as soon as you get home. But I think could you imagine doing that on a traffic stop?
No.
First contact on a traffic stop. Do you want to be thinking about something about, your marriage or family life, or
No.
before you even walk up and make contact with the driver? No, because that's the most dangerous spot. Even though 95% of the time it's not a dangerous person, it's just that's when you're exposed the most.
Yeah.
And I feel like the whole time I was deployed, for a large part of it, there's a part of you that feels like you're always exposed. It's that part about not, like I said a few episodes ago. Uh, there's something about what happened to me after Ferguson happened and everybody started kind of turning on police officers. Not everybody, a large vocal part of the population started being very vocal against police officers.
Yeah.
I felt suddenly like I wasn't home and safe anymore. That's what I mean by where I felt like I went back into being deployed phase in a whole nother country and not being home and safe anymore. It's like this whole shift of things that happened was so sudden.
Yeah.
And but also I hadn't completely confronted that weakness of my own yet, or that soft spot of my own yet either.
What
And so
soft
that's what
spot?
made it. That also made it even, compounded some of that pressure that happened afterwards.
What soft
But
spot?
well, just like I hesitate to say weakness. I said weakness first. It was an issue I needed to address to be better, to be healthier
Well said.
in my own mind. So it hadn't been addressed yet. It's still a little bit of a soft spot. It was still a little bit. I don't want to say weakness. Weakness is a bad word, but again, it was an issue that hadn't been addressed yet.
Okay.
I don't know how else to put it, because it is. I mean, it's.
No, I think that's well said.
It's a soft spot.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and I just wanted to understand kind of like what you were saying, because, words are only our attempt at communicating what we're feeling. We've talked about this many times, and like,
Yeah.
it's tough. So, and we've also had people tell us be careful of what we're saying. So I didn't want it to be a moment where you're like, you know what I mean? I just like I heard it, so I
No,
wanted.
perfect. No, exactly. And that's what we're supposed to do. We feed off of each other a little bit. You start saying something, and you might bring up a very valid point, but you'll also go past it really fast. And I don't want it to be glossed over, so I'll bring it up again, and I'll ask you to further explain that part. So yeah, do it back to me as well. That's perfect. That's what we're supposed to do.
Good. Yeah, so you're kind of like having to attend to that, but yeah, how
So that
uncomfortable,
mindset of being there the whole time away from home is a self-protection kind of thing where I'm not going to uh, overanalyze things that are happening outside of this environment because I need to focus on things in this environment to make sure I stay safe and everybody around me stays safe. And we do the right things and we complete the objective,
Yeah,
right? So coming back home, I'm safe. I'm home. Everything's safe now. I went into more of a safe mode, even though I was still struggling at first. I
yeah,
think I've told you this, like leaving the gas station down when we gassed up our vehicles, we have an electronic gate that you can't see through,
mm,
but you have to get close enough for the car bumper to signal the trip the eye or whatever to open up the fence.
yeah,
Well, I would pull up to pull it up to trip it, and then I would back up
yeah,
10, 20 feet, and I would wait until the fence was all the way open, and then I would go through real fast in case, in my mind, somebody was just on the other side of that fence waiting for me.
yeah,
So that hypervigilance didn't go away right away, even though I knew I was back home and safe.
yeah,
Um, but that's also part of the job as well, being a police officer. You kind of have to stay in that mindset too, in some regards. But I don't know. I was always good at being able to shut it off when I went home.
yeah,
Where I don't know that it was fully shut off when I went back to the base.
yeah. That is weird when you're a police officer. It's like you're always kind of like on as much as you want to be like, I'm good. It's like you learn over time after seeing, because you're always seeing everyone's worst moment. You're always seeing like these things that you almost assume aren't happening in your community, but all of a sudden you're fully exposed to the idea of how, well, I'm not going to say, there's a lot more going on in your town than you have any idea until you're a police officer or first responder. Because it's really
Yeah,
about what your world looks like. And if you don't really have emergencies in your world and you don't really have like, things that happen suddenly in your world, emergencies, you're kind of like, oh, I guess the rest of the world operates like this too. But there's people, even if you want to break it down to something, what am I trying to say?
well,
You
you
see
said
this,
it pretty good before. You're dealing with somebody going through their worst experience ever.
yeah,
You're going through their worst experiences that they've ever experienced. You're
yeah,
there to be a part of it to either help solve it, or in their eyes, you're directly responsible for some of it in some way. In some ways, that
yeah.
mentality comes out too sometimes. But
And you're also dealing with,
but the thing is, we're seeing everybody's. So you in the course of one day or one week, you might see 5 to 10 to 15 really serious situations,
right.
and it was all those 10, 15 people's only serious situation for that time frame. And their neighbors didn't have any serious situations during that time frame, and the neighbor across the street and down the block didn't have any of these. So yeah, a lot of people didn't have these serious situations, but you got to see 15 of them right in a row.
Yeah, and you end up carrying it with you a little bit. You don't realize it, but just by
Absolutely.
witnessing something, I mean, you've seen it. So it's in there. And sometimes you got to make sure you process those things. But you're right, like a regular individual, they have their worst day and then they kind of move forward and they're like, we're going to recover, we're going to go. But, as a police officer, you're seeing everyone's worst day. And then you're told to code it and move on to the next one. And the like you said, you would say stay very hyper vigilant while you were overseas, and that ended up happening in town. No, you were saying you stayed super hyper vigilant, so you're always on the alert for danger, and it's only because it only has to happen once, and like
Right.
you know that this could potentially happen based on situations you've seen. You also get introduced to individuals who are more, let's say, volatile than you're used to a normal person being. So they do things that you would never expect another individual to do. So if you witness that enough times, and like one of the key situations is if someone gets the drop on you in a situation, like you didn't check a corner, like if you're searching a house or something like that, and they got the drop on you and potentially could have hurt you, it's not happening again. You
Yeah.
you make a commitment in your mind, like I'm always checking that corner, and then that transitions into your personal life too, because the people that you love the most are, your friends, your family and your friends. So primarily, you're watching your house, you're making sure it's secure for the people inside because you want to make sure that you're not slipping, that you're not like missing something. And it builds a sense of control. It builds a sense of security. I mean, someone could walk through the door, and I would say better be prepared than not, and I won't lie, like we have guns in the house in different positions, and I almost think it's weird. I almost
Normal.
think it's kind of fun. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, so if they come this
Yeah, but
way,
there's also a normal feeling to it. Like a buddy asked, you're not working anymore. Do you still carry? I go, yeah, I still carry a lot. I don't know. Part of it feels almost like you can't leave the house without your wallet to go driving anywhere.
yeah,
It almost feels like it's a part of it. It's part of the routine. Your phone, your keys, your wallet, your gun.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's
yeah,
hard for it just to go away, but um, because you're just used to doing that way. So I don't know. You get used to being what's normal. Sometimes it can be kind of crazy what you get normal. It's normal for you,
yeah,
uh,
yeah. I've learned over the,
but there's people that weren't police officers that got stuff in their houses and stuff too,
yeah,
that have just trained their brains to think about security more and stuff. Um, and they don't have to be military or police.
for sure.
There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that either. But there's people that don't.
One of our neighboring towns, Kennesaw, here in Georgia, by law, each resident has to have a weapon in their house. Uh,
Oh, really?
yeah, that was implemented after the Civil War. It looks like the North got the drop on
Is
that.
that one of those ones that probably isn't strictly enforced as much as it used to be, probably?
It's not strictly enforced. And if you look it up on YouTube, they really will be people walking around the town like asking people, like, do you really have to have a weapon in your house? And they're like, heck yeah, this is Kennesaw. But it's just such
Yeah.
an old thing. There was a huge battle at Kennesaw Mountain in Georgia during the Civil War, and maybe they didn't have enough guns. So
Yeah.
it's not,
That's not gonna happen again.
yeah, I think that was
That's funny.
potentially the battle that happened uh, was just before, Atlanta being burned down during the Civil War. So again, they were probably
That's
like,
cool.
this won't happen again.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
but
just think that'd be like a funny sitcom setup or whatever. Like going door to door.
yeah,
You
good.
got your guns? Let me see your guns. All right. This one doesn't work. It's missing a firing pin. Here's one that works.
Yep,
Keep it in your house at all times, or I'm gonna write you a citation.
you're welcome.
Don't make me come back. Them better be here when I come back and check. The way that could just run, you could run so many different directions with that.
Someone comes out with like a musket, and they're like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
No,
no.
no, no. Yeah, yeah.
Here's
Oh
a
no, that's old school.
here's a Glock. This works a lot better. Yeah,
Uh,
they pull out one of these bad boys, black powder.
yeah. Do you even have black powder? No.
Not
That
anymore.
won't work then.
I had black powder in my
Your
house.
Your HOA has a standard SOP for what kind of gun you can carry, what platform, what rounds,
I bet they do. They got a rule for everything else.
so
I
you
don't,
can.
it's pretty amazing. People in the HOA are, people moved in, and when you first move into like a neighborhood, it's a brand new neighborhood, and the builders still have control of the property, so they're kind of like they have the HOA. And the majority of the HOA at that point is to make sure that the neighborhood stays pretty so that potential buyers coming in are going to continue to buy, right? And no one's destroying the property. I think it also works out good because immediately we saw some houses that were people were starting to park on the front lawn and stuff like that. And so that worked out well, it keeps our property value going up. But once all the properties are sold, the residents, the HOA is handed off to the people to the residents. And man, people like they there's all these people running to be
It's
like
polarizing, isn't it?
resident and stuff. And people, one of our neighbors was asking Kate about it, like, Kate, would you be interested in like being in the HOA and like that sort of stuff? And we were like, heck no. Like, those are the people like who must get calls all the time from neighbors being like, hey, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? Because
I
within
saw the Johnsons walking their dog in the front yard, and they
exact
pooped on the corner of my driveway, and they didn't pick it all up.
exactly like stuff like that, like angry Karens. And what's a male Karen? Is it a Kevin?
I've heard like Clay and Kate, Kevin, and stuff like that are different names for it. Yeah.
So you'd be dealing with those people all the time.
Yeah,
And these people try to be like buddy buddy with you. Yay, come on over, blah 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 blah. And then like it's
yeah,
actually a transactional invite. It's like, hey, so let's talk about where my fence sits.
yeah, yeah. Can you turn a blind eye if I take 2 inches away from the neighbors over here?
Yeah, that's not encroachment. It is, no, never. Um, but as soon as it got handed off to the people, someone who was uh, brave enough to put themselves on the ballot got elected, and they quit within like a month. They were like, I'm not doing this. This is
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. I
yeah.
know when I was down in Dallas and I was looking for an apartment, pretty much all the apartments down there had a standard like you could be if you're a police officer, you get free rent or really big reduced rent, but you have to answer calls
Uh,
around the apartment complex for loud noises and dogs and shit like that. I was like, no, I don't want to go home and relax just to have all these messages of people I got to go talk to
who are
about
my
noise complaints and parking complaints and shit like that.
who are my neighbors? Who know where I
Yes,
live?
yes,
You don't mess with people when they know where you live. It's just not a good idea, for sure. Especially like you want to have a good like relationship with your neighbors. You don't want to get in the middle of stuff or start negotiating stuff for them because stuff can go sideways quick, and then all of a sudden you're no longer friends. You're like, what
yeah.
happened? Oh, you didn't give me what I wanted. Um, yeah. So really quickly, back to Chaplain Patrick. I just thought everything you brought to the table was awesome. I think it's so
He was easy to talk to too. I could see he'd be a really good chaplain.
yeah, and he's always been like that. When I first got down here, I was still like so caught up. I was still kind of like trapped in the moment, and I didn't know what to do because I had that near death experience, and like I'm trying to process that, and I was like I went to Tim, who again was my boss at the time. He was the pro at Town Lake Golf Course here in Atlanta. And I asked him, I was like, what would you do? And he's like, you could probably meet with my pastor. And I was like, this is different. Um, and I was just like, you know what? Sure. I hadn't met with anyone like a priest or a pastor since I'd been injured. I've been exploring faith, but I was doing it on my own. You know what I mean? I wasn't asking a lot of
Yeah,
questions. Then AA came along, which is based, a lot of it is based on a higher power. So that kind of like introduced me to something being bigger than myself. And then through like trauma counseling, I was able to kind of get uh, back to where I was initially as a child, like back to Jesus, back to Christianity and that sort of thing. And it was really that there was trauma between me and God. It wasn't like God had kind of gotten him or not had given up on me. It's I was so shameful that I wasn't reaching out anymore. So I had to like tiptoe, almost like backdoor my way back into faith because I thought I had to earn my way back into his good graces. Uh, and I was thinking about it today when I was again I was reading or sorry, listening to Chaplain uh, Pat, Pat, and it really sounded like what I did is I had to try everything before I tried God,
hmm
and I had to get to the place, and it was right what he was saying that if nothing else has worked, what do you have to lose?
yeah,
And that was a huge thing for me. It was like it was the second to last stone. And I was like, fine, I'll try God. If you're here, God, I need you. And then things started changing in my life really quickly. And then the last stone I turned over um, was that old trauma. And it was, okay, if I'm still suffering and I feel like I'm at the end of my road, what do I have to lose? Why
yeah,
not just look at that under that last stone? And somehow I was able to share that secret, I believe, because God was right there with me that day and talk about that trauma. And it it changed my life forever. Just getting it off my chest what had happened to me as a little kid. And it opened new doors. It felt so freeing. And it was something that I was so ashamed of for so long. And still sometimes I have to go back and attend to that kind of like memory. Uh, and like where it showed up in different places during my life and, when I was sad as a little kid and all that kind of stuff. But I know now that God was with me. I believe now that God was with me the whole time, but I was kind of like, I had turned from him because I didn't want him to see me because I was so ashamed. And like I was thinking about it today, like that's such a an interesting concept when you consider if God's on earth, the devil's on earth. And if the devil's on earth, what would he do? Instead of like telling you, God doesn't love you, he'll actually trick you into believing that what you had done is so shameful that God would never love you. So he's actually lying to you. But unfortunately, we buy the lie because it makes sense at the time. We feel shameful about what we had done. And so
Yeah.
he almost whispers, there's no chance for you anymore. But if you come with me, it's not a big deal, And it's almost like
Yeah.
enticing in that moment, like, well, you know, if I don't have to be good for the rest of my life, why don't I be bad? And to, as a little kid, you get trapped in that corner of, okay, am I going to be good for the rest of my life and maybe I'll get back into heaven and in God's graces? And that's what the devil whispered in your ear because he's already forgiven you. Or do I just say screw it and just be bad for the rest of my life? And I think that's where the devil kind of gets us. It's like, you know what, you're right. I'll just be
Well,
screw
it's
the
not even
world.
about being bad per se. It's just, I mean,
Yeah,
bad food tastes better. It's easier to be lazy than go to the gym or go for a run. It's easier to not, study the Bible and read the Bible and try to grow spiritually.
yeah,
It's easier not to open a book or take a class and try to improve your educational standards and you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
hard work. To be good at anything, it takes hard work. It's kind of like
yeah,
the montage thing we talked about a couple episodes ago. That's the hard part. That's the meat and the potatoes is actually doing the work. And it's like the road to heaven is hell.
right.
It's hell to get through. It's hard. It's hell to get through the road to heaven. But the road to hell is easy.
You know what the devil whispers to me a lot when I'm trying to get my spiritual game on is it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or like if God already loves you, why do you need to get into the Bible? Why should you explore even?
Yeah.
Why try even harder if he already loves you? And it's all these just little whispers. But like you end up like knowing in your heart, you're like, uh, that's I don't even know where those thoughts are coming from most of the time. It's just like this quick it's like this lazy person in my head, like a lazy fat demon who's just like, doesn't matter. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
If God loves you, then why would you do that? Why would you
Yeah.
have to do, what I mean? So there's all these like whatevers going on in your head. Like, what? I wonder how you shut that off. And you know where the
Well,
devil also gets me is in my freaking dreams because like lately I've just been having the worst dreams. And I wake up and like my soul almost believes that the actions that took place during my dream, whether they were violent, whether I was drunk, whether I was rude, whether I was aggressive, and all these things, they like chip away at my soul somehow, where I like wake up feeling like I'm a bad person. Do you get that ever, like with your dreams? Because it's so
yeah.
fucked up. Like,
Mine are kind of based on some things that I've actually done or been a part of or been around or wasn't smart enough to understand how to handle it better
right,
or how to verbalize it better. Be whatever from family members to friends to whatever girls you dated, jobs you've had, and it's all based on that.
yeah.
Or the negatives of those, the most negative parts of all of those parts,
So
and then it just kind of gets exploited and gets bigger and bigger and snowballs into something
Yeah.
more than it ever was to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny because uh, you might say that the devil knows us probably better than we know us.
Mm.
He's been around since the conception of mankind. He's seen the fallacies of mankind. He's been a part of it. Yeah, I think it's fair to assess that after all this time, he probably knows pretty well what to say and whisper in our minds to cause the most doubt at all times.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he he knows us better than we know him. He knows us better than we know ourselves, and he knows God better than we know God.
Yeah.
We got a very worthy opponent,
Yeah. And
but the
what's
cards are stacked against him because all you have to do is have the faith and the positive attitudes and love in your heart and spread that love and search for that love and try to keep your mindset focused on that love, and then you can start to vanquish that and put it away. But it's not easy. It's easier said than done, as most of my advice is.
so what's funny is like the things we're saying are like out there, and I like how it's
But
amazing
they're true.
how we got to this point to even discuss these things because I was very much like none of this is true. Uh, but I'll listen to the stories of the Bible because they're basically made up to basically teach you like a lesson and all that kind of stuff. Like, but I and and what's interesting is like when you're born and you hear this and it starts to stick with me more and more is like a child is like born and they have a faith of a child, fully believing, fully wondrous, fully joyous. You know what I mean? They're not even self-aware of what they look like, if they should be ashamed of anything,
Right. Well, they've been
anything
at
like
least
that.
corrupted by the evil of the world or the
Well said.
harsh
Least
realities of the world.
so is it like so you come in, you're least corrupted, and then somewhere there's a point where you're pushed to believe, well, you know, these are stories, they're analogies, they're, all these kinds of things. And you're like, okay, okay, whatever, but you have the faith of a child, but eventually you're like, okay, okay. And you kind of get older and you start like thinking, what happened. But a lot of the world is pushing it down too, especially me growing up as a Christian. It's like, no, that's bullshit. And you're like, no, I know what I know and blah, 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 blah. But along the way, it almost like you go through life and it gets like chipped away. And you just get like, for me, I was just like chipped away and then smashed. And then the only thing for me to do was revert back to being like that little kid and like basically out of desperation be like, God, if you're there, please, I pray to you, please show up. And then what happened when I started praying is like things started changing to the point I was so shocked that you and I were having conversations and I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, there's something here that I don't
Yeah.
understand. I don't get it at all. But God or this higher power showed up in my life in such a strong way. It got me sober. It got me through, depression. It got me through the things I didn't want it to help me with. I didn't want to accept that it would even work. And like, you end up by being broken, going back to this place where you're like, well, if this one thing that I denied is now true, that if I pray, it changes things in my world, then God becomes more like real, like more tangible and more tangible and more tangible. But then you start accepting, oh no, and you start almost seeing it through yourself and your actions and through your mind. Like I almost like the idea of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder really kind of comes true in my world. And that's how I started
Well,
talking
yeah.
about like, the devil is, if he's here in the world, the number one thing he would do is whisper that I don't exist and God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
He would whisper prayer doesn't change things. He would whisper, you know, uh, thinking about hurting people doesn't matter, like stuff like that. And I think I've bought a whole bunch of lies, and now I'm kind of scared to dissect which one is like, and which one's true and which not. So I've been like trying to process that. But I think, like in your heart, you're like, either what you come out of something and you realize what you've done was wrong, or if you were about to do something and you didn't do it, you're like, I'm not going to do it. because it's wrong.
Yeah.
There's like a governor in me somewhere that even if I hurt somebody who I know fully deserves it, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel less than I did prior to doing it. Uh, it just makes me feel sad that like I've become a person who wants to hurt other people. Uh,
Okay. So let's break this down really, really simple with everything that you just said, all of it, including the being the child. Children are closer to God, right?
yeah,
Well, that's probably because they were actually literally closest to God compared to anybody that's lived longer than them.
and I
The
believe
the
that.
the
I
the,
believe
the,
that now. That makes
the,
total
the,
sense. Like I
the
had,
shortest
like,
amount of time between being in the womb and being in the air
yeah,
and being in the world, and how that starts to happen, right? Same thing with when you're feeling love and you're self-improving and you're going to AA and you're praying, you right then are getting yourself closer to God.
yeah,
When you start listening to the doubts and the negatives, and that negativity brings more negativity, and you become more negative outlook, and you start doubting Jesus and start doubting your religion and start doubting your belief, everything seems to go to shit. Well, I think it's all connected. Like I said, you got to stay every day uh, as connected as you can. And through prayer, through reading the scripture, through studying, through making a positive impact, making a conscious decision to be more positive and less negative, to give more love and spread more love, and try to, even if people don't accept it and they reject it, who cares? Don't do it for your own glory. Just do it because it feels good to do something good for other people. It
yeah,
can be just that simple. But that even that simple action is going to connect you closer to a loving environment and a loving universe, and that is what
yeah,
Jesus is in my book. It is love.
yeah, yeah. And it's it's so big of a topic. There's so many
It's
layers.
the biggest topic.
Yeah,
Why
it's
are we here? What happens when we die? This is the biggest topic of mankind.
yeah. And that it seems for me it was definitely the road. You go out into the world, you get broken, you run back with your tail between your legs saying, I'm not even worthy to sit at your table. Please accept me as a slave, you know? And they're like, God's like, no, you've always been my child and I've always been with you. It's just you went out into the world and tried to find worldly things that would make you feel like you were comfortable and in
Yes,
control and all that kind of stuff.
you try to stuff this hole in your heart with
Yeah,
money, with
you,
lust, with drugs, with alcohol, with power, with jobs,
yeah, with success.
with success, with all these different positive things, but in the name of those items, in the name of worldly items. If you do all that in the name of love, in the name of God, in the name of goodness, and you spread more love than you do hate, and you are always looking for positives instead of negatives, that positivity breeds more positivity. That love breeds more love. That makes everyone around you happier and more successful and healthy. That brings us all closer to God. This is all secular and all very good stuff. And it
Do,
really comes down to you making the decision yourself to say good things and think good things, or say bad things and think bad things.
Do you think that people know that, but what we try to do is run out and get the things that we're told to get in the world, and once we have that set up, then we're like, okay, now I'll do the godly
No,
things?
I don't think we know it. I think
No.
if we really examine ourselves, we could figure it out. It's there. But no, if I think first, like first, you got to fill up the hole with as much boats and motorcycles and pool tables as you can before you go. That's not really satisfying.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
uh,
And 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 I think I'm starting to understand, like if you had anyone in your world that, for me it was my grandma, older woman. She had been through a lot, you know what I mean? Like a lot through World War II and like rheumatoid arthritis and like, some stuff that was happening at home and all that kind of stuff. Man, she was the most faithful and holy person I've ever met. You know what I mean? Like she would pray like she was having an actual conversation and she would bring you into it too and she would share that love and that light, it's so amazing. And I'm starting to see that, like, the if you let it happen, the older you get, the closer you can get, because you find out eventually that the world isn't going to fill the hole inside your heart, that making, you think your life's going to be different when you make $100,000, but you know,
It
it
doesn't.
it doesn't. And then you're like, well, maybe if I make 120, then I can really kind of like relax and maybe get closer with God and like work on my spirituality or something like that. But the money doesn't help, so you just keep getting hungry. And you're being told your whole life that what you have isn't enough. Like you could literally today go out and buy the best phone in the world, and within 6 months, someone's going to tell you that a new one that's better is coming out.
Yeah.
So you almost get shamed into, okay, now I got to go get the other one. And it's just such a sad
Yeah.
thing.
Same thing with clothes. Same thing with cars. Same thing with houses,
Yeah, same thing with
computers, TVs, everything.
my dad would
These
always
are
be
all
on me about a
worldly
car.
things.
A car is transportation from point A to B. But to me, I was like, no, I need cool cars are cool cars, and cool
Yeah.
cars are necessary. And
Gonna make me look cooler with the other guys. It's gonna make me look cooler with the other girls. Pick up the girls easier.
yeah,
It's all part of that worldly
I heard
lust that
someone
we
say,
we go after.
I heard someone say one time that he wished that it might have been Jim Carrey. He wished that everybody would get everything they wanted materially and like money wise right away, to find out that it actually doesn't make you feel better. It gives you
Yeah.
freedom of choice. You can choose to do different things and have different
Well, yeah. It can
adventures.
some ease can come from that in some ways, but I mean, I've had a blast in when I was younger, when I first started out in the military or early in some college classes or something where you didn't have hardly any money, and you still find a way to go out and have fun and do things and hang
Yeah,
out with people and just be yourself
yeah,
and spread love and kindness and happiness and friendship and camaraderie and I mean you can do that with finding quarters and nickels in your couch to get together to buy a cheeseburger or something.
mm, yeah. And I think
Um,
what's sad is sometimes people, they like when you're young, like, like you said in high school or whatever, you're scrounging in the couch to see if you can get enough money to get a cheeseburger, more like college. That's kind of like the deal. And then someone tells you that the way you're living isn't enough, and you're like, what do you mean? And so you start
I
chasing
don't
the
think anybody tells
things.
you. You just start doing it because of the commercialism all around you. It just kind of is. Nobody's actually saying it's not enough, but it's implied because everybody is chasing for something better. If you're not chasing for something better than you have now, then you're stagnant. You're not growing. You're not doing.
Yeah,
Well, maybe in some regards, but maybe it's okay to be okay with where I'm at,
yeah, and I think people get really
which I just
pissed
now
off.
finally got to.
Yeah, and I think people get pissed off because, a lot of the times they're, you know, uh, someone's being told you need to do one, two, three, and then you'll be better, you'll be happier, or you'll be more accepted, and like all this kinds of stuff. And then you do one, two, three, and you get there, and you're more bitter that you did all the stuff that you didn't want to do because you were told to do it. Let's, that can apply to a lot of different things. And then there was no return, like you were told there was gonna be. Do you know what I mean? That might be
Yeah,
a good example right now might be college for like young men and women. You know, you are
yeah,
told you have to go to college in order to be successful, but that's starting to change. Like real talk. People are like, well, maybe a trade school is better for a lot of people. Maybe going into the military is a lot better. You know what I mean? Instead of just like saying success is college, no, success is figuring out what you want to do as best you can and start moving in that direction. And if that means you want to do a profession that does require you to go to college, and that's one of the obstacles you're going to go through. But
yeah,
if you want to be, what they're calling now, like $1 million plumber, go to trade school. You know what I mean? Get an
yeah,
apprenticeship, like do all these kinds of things that are going to get you to where you want to go instead of having to check the box of I did everything everyone else told me, like, and then I can go do what I want to do. Like a lot of people are just encouraging individuals to stop just doing everything that everyone's telling you to do because there are personal interests on the other side. Universities are telling you that you need to go to university to be successful. Do you know that
yeah.
a lot of universities are now closing down because they overinflate it? They told too many people that they had to go to college in order to be successful. The tuitions went way out of control. They went way up, and there was no way now for people to even get that degree. And they're still selling the lie. So people stop going to college, start going to trade school, and start getting jobs on that end instead of having to get that certificate. My wife did not finish college, and she basically just got her master's degree in marine underwriting, which is insane. It's almost like 2% of people in her uh, career field even have that certification. It's a big
Huh.
deal. We get a free trip to go to Hawaii in November for a whole week just for her to be recognized as one of the individuals that year who did it. And
That's cool.
yeah, it's really cool. So
You
there's
got
lots
room
of
in your suitcase to pack me?
yeah,
I want to go to
absolutely.
Hawaii.
I think we're going to take our golf clubs for the first time anywhere, I think.
There you go.
We got these travel golf bags from Kate's parents for Christmas, so I guess it's just fate that we're gonna throw our clubs in there. I mean, I would rent, and it's probably what would you do?
I don't know. It's a whole week. How many times you actually gonna play? If
Probably,
you're on a hotel that has like a course there and a discount on the course, so you can go at least 2 or 3 times and take your clubs. If you know for sure you're only going to go once, Brent,
yeah, okay. I'm with you on that. That makes sense.
because it's still going to be fun to play the course. But I mean, is it worth the traveling with your clubs, potentially damaging your clubs,
That
potentially losing your clubs?
yeah, and I don't know if I'm at the professional level yet, but
Exactly. And what you don't hit quite as well as you would have with your clubs. Does that mean you're not going to enjoy it? I
yeah,
mean, don't put that score in for your handicap then if that's what you're worried about. I don't know. You
yeah,
even counting your handicap?
yeah. So So one more thing I wanted to say before we kind of tie this up, and I know we're a little all over the place, but we wanted to thank Patrick for being on the show. We learned a lot
When
from
are
him.
we not all over the place? That should be like part of our tagline.
Yeah, welcome to it. But something I thought kind of like was interesting because I was like looking at resilience today. I'm like, what? You know, Because there's a lot of things we can do. We can talk about historical figures. We can talk about ways of being resilient. We can talk about people who teach other people to be resilient. We can talk about people or and have people on who've been through situations where they've shown resilience or learned what resilience was in their world and all that kind of stuff. But what I did find in my search was that there are three characteristics to individuals who are resilient. And I think we were just talking about, how life is. You kind of come in with this bright light. It sort of gets faded a little bit. And in my case, you get crushed. But then you kind of come back. And that's your moment of being resilient. That's like, you know what? I'm not going to give up. Even if I bought the lies of the world, even if the things that I achieve don't make me happy, I'm not going to give up. There's another way. So people who are resilient have three things when they decide they're not going to give up. And one is they accept that shit happens in life and that's part of life. That
Yes.
suffering is actually part of life and you are not
Yeah.
being discriminated against if you're going through it, right? We talk about that a lot. You're not the only one. Sometimes that helps to know that there's other people in pain. That's a weird thing to say, I guess. But, it's not you in particular being picked on. In my world for a long time, it was like I was the only one being picked on because those are the only lenses I was looking through. But the world was still turning. It didn't stop when anything happened to me, right? So the world's going to keep moving. Stop thinking, why me? You should start thinking, why not me? It could happen to anybody, whether I do good things or bad things, right? So number one is they accept shit happens in life. Two is they are good at selecting where their attention goes when shit happens. They don't pretend like they're not going through something. They acknowledge that they are going through something, that they are going to have to make some decisions to move forward. But instead of entertaining all the rabbit holes like I do, I go down and how could this person do that and how could this person do that? They're really good at selecting where their attention goes. So that's controllables versus uncontrollables. They make sure that
Hmm.
they put their attention and their effort into things that have a return instead of me spinning my wheels for the longest time just trying to run over a person. How to
All the what ifs, all the what
all the what
ifs.
ifs. How could I have changed this in the past? How could I blah, blah, blah? Instead of putting, they're really good at putting their attention in the here and now. What can I
So
do?
I would say they get to the acceptance phase just a little bit quicker than some of us might.
Exact. Yeah,
Well, but
that's
that's good though. I mean, that's really
so
good, and I'm
true.
glad you're saying all this. But it really does come down to some of the things that we say all the time. Control what you can control.
Yeah,
You got to say that to I have to say that to myself all the time when something happens. Because
yeah,
I'll start doing what you do, what you're saying too. I'll do the same thing. What about this? What about that? And I'll start. I won't accept it enough,
yeah.
fast enough to move on sometimes and move forward, or move forward, not move on, move forward.
That's such a
Because if
good
you're just gonna
point.
sit there, what if it? You're just spinning your wheels. You're not making any progress.
And nothing's changing.
Nothing's changing. You're not controlling what you can control.
Yeah,
You're letting something you can't control run rapid in your mind, so it's just spinning the wheels
yeah.
until you get to the point where it can gain some traction by saying, "All right, how am I going to move forward from this?" Then
So,
you can start gaining traction.
so the third thing they do, which actually goes right along
Yes.
with that, is they ask the question, is what I'm doing helping me or is it harming me? And they can
Yeah.
be honest with the answer.
Okay.
You know, resentments, although they're fun to play with and it feels like you're banging that person up and all that kind of stuff, it's not real. And so I need to ask myself when I go into my aggressive stage, when I'm thinking I need to ask myself, is this helping or hurting me?
Yeah.
And sometimes
It could be both. It can
it,
help you sometimes, venting, releasing some of that anger, especially if it just happened.
yeah,
So you can allow
absolutely.
yourself to do that a little bit.
I'm
But
I'm I'm
now,
with you. Yeah, I'm with
yeah,
you on
but
that.
now what you're saying is a really good point. Also, at some point in time, is it helping or hurting?
Yeah,
So if you're past the part of it helping because it happened a year ago, you've already done these fantasies for a couple times now.
yeah,
It's time to move on and stop spinning our wheels on that part. It's no longer helping to relieve the stress and vent. It's
e-
time to start moving forward in a positive way. Oh, I
exactly.
like it. That's good. Where did that come from? What?
And it's not just mentally. It's Lucy Hone. She is a basically resiliency speaker,
All
and
right.
she went through something very traumatic in her life. One of
Let's
her,
send her an email, see if she wants to come on.
yeah, I will. But yeah, she did a TED talk, and she was talking about it. And what happened with her, she actually she lost a child in a car wreck. She was caravanning on the way to something, like a couple families were going to the same location, and it sounded like her child decided to ride in another car with another child, and unfortunately that vehicle was struck and they passed away immediately.
Oh wow.
And that's one of the hardest things you can ever go through. It's actually, been documented that losing a child is one of the hardest things you could ever go through. And one of the first things that she started hearing right away, like we hear in law enforcement, we hear I heard right away within minutes of like being at the hospital, you're going to have to find your new normal, right? She was being told right away, you're not going to get through this for the next 5 years. Your chances of divorce are going up immediately. You're traumatic, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And she was just being told all these things. And she was just like, you know what? This isn't helpful. You
Right.
know, yes, you're trying to warn me what's going to happen. And I'm grateful for that. But it
Yeah.
doesn't
Let's
mean
not focus on it.
yeah, I don't need to focus on when's the negative going to show up. And I think I kind of did a little bit. You're telling me that I should be scared that my mind's going to play tricks on me. Immediately, I'm going to start second guessing myself. Even if I told you straight to your face, why are you telling me that right now? Because I did. I was
Yeah.
like, this isn't like all that helpful. But she went through this and she said that, what she's learned is the three things again that a person who's resilient they have is they have accepted that shit happens, that it's part of life, and that they're not being picked on when it happens to them because it happens to everybody. They're good at selecting where their attention goes during the chaos. They're able to focus on controllables versus uncontrollables. And then they ask the question when they're doing things, is this helping or harming me? And one of the topics that she brought up, helping or harming me, she brought up resentments, and that automatically struck me. Imagining what you would say, so reprocessing whatever it is, the traumatic situation. In a lot of situations, you're picking back up the trauma and trying to change it. It's not
Yeah.
gonna, it actually is hurting you because you're dropping real emotion into it. But you could also parallel that with like, is what you're doing helping or hurting you? Because a lot of like social media, a lot of people are having issues with social media these days, and it's because they're either being so flabbergasted by what they see, you know what I mean, and shocked, they're getting angry, and they continue to watch more social media and strike out at people. I've been guilty of this. In my first like years of like recovery, those people that I wanted to hurt, if I was activated, I would get on social media and I would just be like, "Did you know that this person is a terrible person?" It didn't do anything good for me. It didn't do anything good for the other person. It had no good transaction. C. Hone, she stated that resilient people have three characteristics. One is they accept that shit happens and it's part of life. They're not being picked on or discriminated against. They're not thinking, why me? They're thinking, why not me? Bad stuff happens to people all the time. Two is when those bad things happen, they're good at selecting where their attention goes during that chaos. They focus on controllables and uncontrollables. They can see the storm, but can choose what to focus on. And then they answer the question when they are doing things past that point, is what I'm doing helping or harming me? Uh, and then so basically, they have a willingness to try to get better. They have a willingness to try things that they're not always comfortable with because usually the easy choice isn't always the right choice. You know,
Right.
I'm guilty of that. I usually try the easy thing, and you
Oh
always
yeah, we all are.
yeah, well, you always
We're
know
all
you
guilty.
probably have to come back to it. So it is funny. And what that made me think of is like, what did we always get taught through sports in childhood? How to be a good loser. Not only like how to be a
Yep.
good winner, but how to be a good loser. And man, were we coached on that. You got to, like figure out what happened, figure out how you could be
Yeah.
better. We can process the tape, we can look at all the things, and then we're just going to go out the next week and we're going to make changes and implement it this week so we can get a good win and move forward. You know, like why haven't I
It
been
was
doing?
also always shake the hand.
Yeah,
Go shake their hand, even though they beat us. Go shake their hand.
and I've forgotten all that. Like it doesn't apply on the field of life. And I think I need to get better at that. I think I need to be a
Yeah.
better sport sometimes. And remember these things because but we are human and that's why
Yeah.
yeah, we're human. It is what it is. But yeah,
Exactly.
so if you're out there, we're with you. You're not alone. You can reach out to us as always. Well, first off, wherever you are watching from, please like, share, and subscribe. The reason being, it's not only do we want to know you like what we're doing, is we want to get more ideas of what we should do moving forward. Um,
Yes. More
yes,
stories to talk about.
more stories to talk
Yeah.
about. And yeah, we're excited to be here for you guys. Follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at SHT Creek Survivors. Get on there, subscribe. We put up on posts every day, so it makes it really fun and interactive. You can watch us on YouTube at SH exclamation point T Creek Survivors. You can also follow me independently at Cameron.mckay.368 on Facebook and Instagram. You can send us your story or other stories that you like of resilience to shitcreekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out the website, www.shitcreeksurvivors.com. And besides that, Dennis, you got any last words of advice for these people as they go off and conquer this week?
Yeah. No. Just email us. Let us know things to talk about.
Yeah,
Give us some more tools for the toolbox to share with everybody, so they can get more tools for their toolbox to share with people.
exactly.
And have a good day and spread love.
Absolutely. All right, till next time. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Hey guys, wherever you're listening or watching from, please like, subscribe, and share so we can get it out to more people. Have a blessed week. We'll talk to you soon.